Hey guys, I'm Nicky Romero. First of all, thanks everybody for tuning in every time to the Masterclass videos because we got a lot of reaction to it. Today, we're back with another new video for you guys. We're gonna talk about the song PRTCL, which is my latest club track. And I wanted to loop through a couple of things like layering synths, like layering basses, some percussion, and the most important thing, the entire mix and how it sounds like together. Make sure that you note everything. I'm just joking. Hope you guys have fun. Alright guys, we're here looking at the project of the song PRTCL, which is also because my label is called Protocol. We thought it was like fun to name a song after the label with the 100th release. So, well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for watching all the other ones because the Masterclass has been doing really well, and I thought it would be good to look into a club song like Protocol as well. So, just as you're used to, this is the project file of the song called Protocol, and it sounds like a really easy song, and it really is. In the end of the day, it really is, but still, it's kind of hard to mix these kind of songs because the bass is moving, there's a lot of layering and sounds, and the percussion is really important, where you have radio songs where it's all about the vocal and the structure of the song, the chords. The more like clubby songs are really about drum programming, about mix, and about making the song as easy to dance to as possible. Well, there's a lot of different approaches to that, of course. I thought this one brought me back a little bit to the roots of, for example, Camorra, or my track with Nilsson and John Christian called Same Man. And it really feels like this. And it was so important to have that drive going. The drive is all this song needed. It was all about the drive. So I'm gonna layer everything for you and show how the song is built up from the source. Usually I start with the kick drum, and a lot of people have, you know, different ways of producing. For me, the kick drum and the bass are the most important thing because they need to talk to each other in order to get your song mixed right. Therefore, the kick needs to be in the right key in first place, usually. So it's starting off with the kick and then adding the bass. And as you can hear, it sounds really, really simple. And there's two basses going on, and I was struggling a lot with the bass because it moves. And because it moves, it also shifts in frequencies all the time. And it's not like one note, it's like it slides up and down, as they call they call it glide or portamento, depending on what plugin you use. So in order to have that slide going on without it interfering with the kick drum, it takes a lot of work, and I really needed to look at the analyzer to see what was going on with what frequencies. A lot of you guys are familiar with sidechaining, and those who are not, there's a plugin called Kickstart. For example, it's the one that we've done with Cable Guys that makes it really easy to sidechain your projects. But it helps you a lot with getting your bass glued to your kick. Two layers going on here for the bass. One is the top bass, and it's really taking care of the top part of your bass. So everything above, let's say 100 hertz, maybe 120, the bass does not need a lot of energy above that frequency anyway, but it still gives that presence in the mix, especially when you're listening on speakers that don't have that heavy subwoofer on it. So I did that with a plugin called Massive, and I think the Massive is really good for basses that give pressure to the mix, so they really punch through, especially on smaller speakers. A really, really good way of finding a bass is just browsing through the different folders and presets and see what pressure you like most. And it sounds a little bit weird, but pressure is more like that in-your-face feeling, and that was where I was looking for in this song. So I ended up with some preset called Force Field, and I just tweaked some of the knobs, some of the cutoff to make sure that it's not open too much. Next to that, a simple sine wave that comes from Nexus. And what's really important, if you do a bass that glides up and down, is that they both glide at the same time. And there's a tab here in the plugin called Nexus, where you can set the actual slide time. And if you go to Mod at the Nexus plugin, you'll see port mode in the bottom saying off, poly, trigger, and the last one I don't even know what it means. And this one is set to 132, and it basically tells the bass and the plugin how much it needs to slide. And then I think the Massive does not have that exact same option, but what you can do is listen and figure out if it's kind of, you know, gliding at the same pace or the same speed, which is really important because you want your kick and your bass to be merged together and sound like one. It needs to be like one package. If that's not happening, it's going to be so hard to mix your song afterwards. So for me, really simple. It was the Nexus and a Massive bass, and it's really trial and error. I played the song a couple of times and I thought like it's missing some low frequencies. And at the other hand, I was like, okay, now it has enough low, but it needs a little bit more pressure. It's really about, you know, taking the time to play it over and over again. Adding some drums. Well, programming drums is in a whole different world. I think even the software package that I work with is not even the best one for it. There's Ableton and Fruity Loops that are much easier in programming your drums, but I'm so used to Logic that it works for me. But when it comes to layering drums, it's all about stacking. It's all about adding samples here and there, like Splice is a really good source to get your samples from, but there is Vengeance, there is Sample Magic, there's Loop Masters, there's so many different sample packs that give you a good amount of samples to layer your drums with. What is really important, I think, is to make sure that it sounds tight together. If they are kind of off grid, if your ride or your snare is off grid, it's going to sound messy, and again, it's going to be much harder to mix your song. So giving them their own space is really important. And when it comes to EQing, a lot of your percussion does not really need everything under 100, maybe say 150. And my percussion is usually even limited at or low cutted at 250 because it really does not need a lot more than that. So yeah, a quick low cut on it, and then it's all about leveling, making sure your clap is loud enough, your snare is loud enough, and your kick drum, depending on what kind of song you do, of course. And I always make sure that the punch of the kick is always free of everything. So I try to make quick fade-ins with rides or quick fade-ins with noises that interfere with the kick drum's punch. So, for example, this one. As you can hear, maybe the ride is slightly off, and the attack is slightly later than the attack of the kick drum. And the transients should always give each other the space. And I feel like when the kick has its transient free, it's going to be easier to mix. So much information in just a couple of minutes, guys. I'm trying to merge it together as easy as possible for you guys. But when there's anything you really want to know specifically, make sure you comment down in YouTube, and maybe we can answer your question in the upcoming videos. So feel free to do so. I'll try to answer all of them. Quickly having a look here at the synths that are playing. A lot of my followers ask me to talk about the layering of the synths, how to group them together, and how do you make them sound as one. Well, the first thing I would say is just, go out, play, and see how it sounds together. It's play it on a small speaker, play it on a bigger speaker, play it in your car, and compare it to another song. Like Sample Magic offers you a really easy way of comparing your song. Sample Magic AB, I think it's called. To hear what the difference is. Usually, you just need to make sure that the frequency spectrum is filled up from 20 to, or let's say 30 to 20,000 hertz. And if you fill that gap everywhere, it's going to sound like one, and it's going to sound like everything has its own place. Where to start? I think it's important to find one sound that carries the song, that is the source of that particular song. For me, it's like this bell sound. For me, this was the source and the base of everything. And with this song, I was lucky enough to, for me being on tour, that my friend Nils made a really good setup, and he offered me like a fundament of like a bell, and that reminded me of Camora, and I was like, oh, that's great, let's work on that. So I brought up a plugin called the Virus, and the Virus is actually hardware. It's not just a software synth that you can install. It's like this guy's here, and the top one is offering me the opportunity to tweak everything in the synthesizer with software. So it's like a hybrid way of working, and it gives you a really analog sound. So finding your sound in the song is really important, because this is going to take the most energy and the biggest part of the frequency. So next to that, we're going to layer on top of this. It's like the fundament of the pizza, if you want to compare it to pizza. This is like the bottom of everything. And then now we're going to add sauce and add, ingredients to make it taste a little bit better. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to add instruments here to flavor it up a little bit and to fill the frequency spectrum. So here we have the main source sound. And there's a little bit like of a cracky sound. It's really just this. To give it a little bit more of an edge. And it also, if you listen carefully, it has a frequency in it that's not in the source Virus TI sound in that bell. So it really has a frequency that wasn't there yet. So it's gonna make the sound feel a little bit more full, like a little bit more, like it has more width. It's more of a landscape now instead of just a tree, So it has different layers now, and it has different depths of field. I understand that there's people out there that say like, oh, this is such basic information, and there might be people that say like, oh, this is too much for me, so I'm trying to meet in the middle. Layering up your sounds is nothing more but spicing up your pizza, basically. I have this small trick, as far as you can call it a trick, is playing white noise on every synthesizer. So it gives a little bit more presence to the mix. Sometimes you'll have these sounds that play together and you miss the definition of what the synth is actually playing rhythm-wise. So I like to add a small white noise to it, and that gets that presence in the mix. So whenever it's played on a small radio or in-ears, that it still has that information of what it's playing instead of the notes. It's just rhythm, and it sounds like this. So it has no tone, it's a little bit flangered, but absolutely only for helping to give presence to the synthesizers. That's basically what it's doing. So yeah, if you would add it up, if I would play them all together, it would sound like that, and together with the bass and the kick drum, it's really that. And then we're gonna add some so yeah, I wanted to jump really quickly into this percussion layering as well, as we got some time left to do so. I didn't want to make it too long for you guys, but so what is playing percussion-wise? There's like 16th running toms that are just playing like this, and it reminds me of the old progressive sound where everybody used to do that. So that's just basically for giving the song speed, as it's only 126 BPM, so it's not that fast, but it makes the song feel a little bit faster, so it's not slagging as much. Adding another tom to it, and this one is basically giving the other tom more width. So it's like a natural way of widening up the toms. You could also put like a stereo delay on it, or for example, a sample delay to give it more stereo feeling. But you can also add another sound and pan it differently. So pan it more to the left or pan it to the right. And this way it really feels like it's opening up. Well, as you hear, it's like 3 layers only for toms playing 16th. There's a hat playing that's just on the open hi-hat spot, as we call it often. Some loops going. The ride is opening up. And a clap. So that's it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I want to thank everybody for watching all the Masterclass videos. If there's anything you want to ask specifically about a track, an instrument, or anything, let me know down in the comments. Make sure you tune in for the next one that's coming soon, where we're going to talk about layering vocals, about processing vocals, and how to incorporate them in your project. Stay tuned.